Hey everyone, welcome to TWS English Podcast. Let me ask you something. Have you ever opened a book or watched an English lesson and thought, this is too hard, I'll never get it? Or maybe you know some vocabulary, maybe even a few grammar rules, but when it's time to actually speak, your mind goes blank? I know that feeling. I've been in your shoes. Learning English felt confusing, almost impossible at times. But here's the truth. English isn't about being perfect. It's about building confidence step by step. Today I want to take you on a journey, my journey, a story of how I went from feeling nervous every time I tried to say a simple sentence to finally enjoying real conversations in English. And along the way, I'll share with you the strategies that truly worked for me. These aren't complicated theories. These are simple habits that anyone can use. So let's start from the beginning. When I first made the decision to learn English, I honestly didn't know where to begin. Should I memorize grammar? Should I study thousands of words? Should I focus on pronunciation? It felt like standing in front of a giant mountain with no clear path up. But one day, something clicked. I realized I didn't have to climb the whole mountain at once. I only needed to take one small step at a time. That's when I stopped trying to learn everything and began focusing on the basics, the simple words I could actually use every day. Greetings like hello and good morning, phrases like thank you, how are you, and see you soon. I carried a little notebook with me everywhere I went. Whenever I came across a new word, I wrote it down. On the bus, during lunch breaks, or just before bed, I'd open that notebook and review. Slowly my list grew, and so did my confidence. Of course, the scariest part was speaking. The first few times I tried to say something in English, my hands shook. I worried people would laugh at me. And yes, I made mistakes, plenty of them. But then I realized mistakes aren't failures, they're lessons. Every wrong word taught me the right one. Every awkward sentence became practice for a better one. And the more I practiced, the less afraid I felt. One powerful thing I did was surround myself with English. I didn't try to understand every single word. I just let my ears get used to the sound of the language. Music, TV shows, podcasts, YouTube videos, anything in English. For example, when I lived in Edinburgh, I used to listen to a London radio show every morning on my way to work. At first, it was like listening to noise, but day by day, I started catching phrases, then full sentences, and eventually whole conversations. Without even realizing it, my listening improved. Here's a secret that made learning fun for me. I connected English with things I already loved. For me, that was TV shows. At first, I watched with subtitles in my own language. Then I switched to English subtitles. Finally, I challenged myself to watch without subtitles at all. It was hard, yes, but because I enjoyed the show, it didn't feel like studying. It felt like entertainment, and learning happened naturally. Pronunciation was another hurdle. I knew words, but when I said them, people sometimes couldn't understand me. That was frustrating, so I changed my approach. Instead of being quiet, I started speaking out loud, alone, in front of the mirror, repeating words again and again until they felt natural. I also used online dictionaries that had audio. Hearing a word pronounced correctly and then repeating it was like having a teacher available 24/7. Over time, my pronunciation improved, and people began to understand me much more clearly. And let's be honest, grammar scared me. It felt like a puzzle with too many pieces. I kept forgetting the rules, mixing them up, and feeling embarrassed. But then I had a realization. Grammar is important, but perfect grammar isn't required to communicate. If I could get my point across, even with small mistakes, that was already success. So, instead of waiting until I was perfect, I focused on speaking first. With practice, grammar started improving naturally. Another thing that changed my journey was reading. At first, I chose children's books, short sentences, colorful pictures, and easy vocabulary. Then I moved to simple stories. Later, online articles. I didn't understand every word, but I always understood the main idea. And little by little, I learned new words in context, which made them easier to remember. Consistency became my golden rule. I promised myself, even on busy days, that I would spend at least 15 minutes with English. Some days I did more, some days less, but I never skipped completely. That daily habit was powerful. Like drops of water filling a glass, every small practice added up until one day I realized my glass was nearly full. I could actually hold conversations, read articles, and even write short stories. Speaking of writing, journaling helped me a lot. At night, I wrote a few lines about my day in English. Nothing fancy, just simple sentences like, "Today I went shopping," or "I watched a movie." Over time, those sentences grew longer, and my confidence grew stronger. And then something amazing happened. I found a language exchange partner online. We practiced together, half in English, half in my native language. We laughed at each other's mistakes, corrected each other, and supported each other. It wasn't just about learning, it was about connecting, and that made everything less scary. I even labeled things around my house with sticky notes. My fridge had a sticky note. My door had a sticky note. My mirror had one too. Every time I walked past them, I said the English words out loud. It seemed silly at first, but it worked. Those words stuck in my brain like glue. And then came one of the most powerful shifts in my journey. I stopped translating everything in my head. At the beginning, every time I wanted to say something, I thought in my native language and tried to translate. It was slow and stressful. But then I started training myself to think in English directly. Simple thoughts first. I'm hungry. It's raining. I need to sleep. The more I practiced, the faster my brain switched to English mode. Suddenly, conversations flowed more naturally. One of the biggest lessons I discovered was the importance of asking questions. In the beginning, I was shy. I didn't want to look silly or sound uneducated. But soon, I realized that every question I asked unlocked a new piece of knowledge. If I didn't know a word, I asked. If I wasn't sure about a phrase, I asked. Teachers, friends, even people online. Whenever I was confused, I opened my mouth and searched for the answer. And the more I asked, the faster I learned. Let me share a funny story. Once, after finishing a big meal, I wanted to say, "I'm full." But instead, I said, "I'm full." My friend burst out laughing, and for a moment I wanted to hide. But then I laughed too. That small mistake taught me not only the difference between full and fool, but also something more important. Mistakes are not enemies. Mistakes are teachers. And sometimes they even give us stories we'll never forget. Another vital ingredient in learning English is patience. And believe me, patience was not easy for me. I wanted results quickly. I wanted to wake up fluent the next day. But languages don't work that way.
They grow like plants, slowly, quietly, but surely if you keep watering them. I remember when I moved to Chicago, I was terrified of speaking in public. Ordering coffee felt like a challenge. My first time at a cafe, I rehearsed in my head again and again, 1 cappuccino, please. But when it was my turn, the words came out messy, my voice shaky. Still, the barista smiled, waited, and helped me finish my order. Walking out with that cup of coffee, I felt like I had just won a gold medal. That little victory showed me something powerful. Even if progress is small, it's still progress. To keep myself motivated, I started setting small, clear goals. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent, I broke it down. 1 week, I focused on learning 10 new words. Another week, I aimed to have a 5-minute conversation in English.
Each time I reached a goal, I celebrated, even if it was something as simple as writing a sentence correctly or speaking without freezing. These small wins gave me energy to keep climbing higher. One of my biggest challenges came when I had to give a presentation in English for work. I was terrified. For weeks, I practiced my lines, repeated my speech, and tried to remember everything. On the day of the presentation, my hands were shaking. I forgot some words. I stumbled through a few sentences. But guess what? I made it to the end. And when it was over, I felt stronger, braver, and prouder than ever before. That day taught me something important. Real growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. Another secret to staying motivated was connecting English with things I loved. For example, I've always been a big football fan. So, I started watching football matches with English commentary. At first, it was just a blur of fast talking, but little by little, I began catching familiar words. Phrases like corner kick, free throw, and what a goal became clear. Before long, I didn't need subtitles. My love for football made learning English fun instead of stressful. And that's my advice for you. Connect English with your passion. Whether it's music, movies, books, sports, or cooking, make English part of it. When you enjoy the process, learning doesn't feel like work. Another wonderful part of my journey was making friends from around the world. Some were beginners, some more advanced, but we all helped each other. We corrected mistakes, shared new phrases, and motivated one another. I remember when a friend from Mexico once said, I have hungry, instead of, I am hungry. We all laughed together, and no one felt embarrassed, because we knew we were all learning. Having a community made me feel less alone and kept me moving forward. Looking back now, it feels almost unbelievable. There were times I thought I'd never be able to hold a full conversation in English, but here I am today, sharing my story with you. And here's what I've learned. Patience, consistency, and courage are your best friends. Mistakes are your teachers, and joy is your fuel. If you keep going step by step, you'll wake up one day realizing you've come much farther than you ever imagined.
After I gained some confidence, I wanted to take my English to the next level. I didn't just want to survive with simple words. I wanted to enjoy full conversations, understand jokes, and watch movies without subtitles. At first, the idea felt impossible, but I reminded myself of something important. Every big goal starts with small steps, and with every step I took, what once seemed unreachable started to feel closer. One thing I noticed was how confidence builds like bricks in a wall, one experience at a time. For example, ordering food used to terrify me. I would repeat my order in my head again and again before speaking. If the cashier asked me a question I didn't understand, I froze. But after a few tries, I realized people were patient. They didn't laugh at me, they just wanted to help. I still remember once in New York City when I accidentally asked for a spin instead of a spoon. The waiter looked puzzled for a second, then we both laughed when I corrected myself. That moment changed me. I stopped seeing mistakes as disasters. Instead, I saw them as funny little steps forward. Another game changer for me was practicing with native speakers. I was lucky to have a friend who spoke English fluently. They never judged me. They corrected me gently and encouraged me to keep trying. Talking with them gave me a taste of real, natural English, the kind filled with everyday expressions, jokes, and even slang. If you don't have a native speaker around you, don't worry. There are so many apps and websites where you can find conversation partners from all over the world. Even short chats can boost your listening, speaking, and confidence. That's how I discovered idioms. At first, idioms confused me completely. I'll never forget the first time I heard someone say, "It's raining cats and dogs." My eyes widened. I thought they were talking about real animals falling from the sky. Of course, later I learned it just means raining heavily.
Idioms don't always make sense when translated, but once I started learning and using them, I felt like I had unlocked a secret door into the language. Suddenly, conversations felt more alive and authentic. Another realization that changed everything was this: English is not just a subject, it's a tool. For a long time, I treated it like homework, something I had to study. But once I started using it as a way to learn, connect, and explore, everything became more exciting. Instead of studying grammar books, I read articles about topics I loved. Instead of memorizing word lists, I watched tutorials in English about hobbies I enjoyed. Instead of worrying about mistakes, I joined conversations with people from different countries. English stopped being a task, it became a key. English stopped being a task, it became a key. English stopped being a task, it became a key. English stopped being a task, it became a key. English stopped being a task, it became a key. 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 English stopped being a task, it became a key. 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 It became a key.
It became a key. It became a key to new friendships, new knowledge, and new opportunities. And here's another lesson I want to share. Staying calm makes everything easier. When I was too nervous, my brain felt blocked. I couldn't think of words, even the simple ones I knew. But when I took a deep breath and relaxed, the words started flowing. It's like this. Your brain is a river. When you're stressed, the water gets blocked. But when you're calm, it flows naturally. So the next time you speak English, remember, don't pressure yourself. Just breathe, smile, and let the conversation move at its own pace. Of course, not every day was perfect. There were times I felt stuck, days when I thought, I'm not improving at all. But then, little by little, I noticed progress. The first time I understood a joke. The first time I followed a movie without subtitles. The first time I wrote a long message in English without asking for help. Those small victories reminded me that learning a language isn't about giant leaps, it's about consistent, steady growth. That's the beauty of English. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And the more natural it becomes, the more you enjoy it. Before I knew it, English wasn't something I studied, it was something I lived.
Looking back, I realized that English gave me more than just words. It gave me confidence, friendships, and a way to connect with the world. What started as a struggle turned into one of the most rewarding journeys of my life. The biggest turning point was when I stopped chasing perfect English and started focusing on real communication. I understood that people don't care if your grammar is flawless. They care about your ideas, your personality, and your effort to connect. Once I accepted that, the pressure disappeared. I spoke more freely, listened more openly, and even laughed at my own mistakes. And the amazing thing is, when you relax, your language skills grow faster than you imagine. Another lesson I want to share is about consistency. English is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. You don't need to study 10 hours a day. Even 15 to 20 minutes of practice every single day is enough to make real progress. That's how I improved step by step. I read a few pages of a book, I listened to short podcasts, I wrote simple diary entries, and I spoke to anyone who gave me a chance. Small efforts, but done regularly, created big results. So, if you're learning English right now, don't wait for someday. Start with what you have. Start today. I also want to remind you that learning English is not just about grammar, vocabulary, or exams. It's about building a bridge between you and the world. Every new word is a step toward understanding people, cultures, and stories from across the globe. For me, English opened doors I never thought possible. I could connect with friends from different countries, explore knowledge from experts worldwide, and even travel with confidence. That's the real power of this language. It doesn't just stay in books, it lives in people.
Now, I'll leave you with this thought. Your English journey is unique. Don't compare yourself with others. Don't measure your progress against someone else's timeline. Everyone learns differently, and that's okay. What matters is that you keep moving forward, even if the steps are small. Every mistake is a sign that you're trying. Every new word is proof that you're growing. And every single practice session is one more brick in the foundation of your success. So, let's make a promise. Together. From today, let's stop fearing mistakes. Stop waiting for perfect English and start using the language with confidence and joy. Because the more we use English, the more it becomes part of who we are. Thank you for being with me in this journey on the TWS English Podcast. Remember, English is not just something you learn, it's something you live.